Just recently, Cyberpunk 2077 got the massive patch 1.3 update. I know though this update added in a ton of bug fixes and notable features to the game, it also had this pretty interesting component of a ton of undocumented features. So it actually added in a ton of things like new weapons, new mechanics, and even some interesting twists on old mechanics that are completely undocumented. You just had to find them yourself. In the week or so since the update has come out, I've been looking as well as many others, and I do want to compile a list of some of the very notable things added to the game that you may have just completely missed. As some of these are actually pretty interesting, some even around the DLCs and how they're adding in more content than you realize. But before we get into that, I do want to tell you about today's video sponsor, Mech Arena. Mech Arena is pretty unique in that it's one of the first team-based PvP mobile games I've played where skill actually matters. Look, okay, I must admit, sometimes I do get a bit sweaty in these PvP games in my free time, and Mech Arena actually has that good balanced competitive play. And it's not even just me saying that, you could literally find Reddit threads praising this. So at its core, Mech Arena is all about player versus player competition. It features a variety of different game modes to get into, whether it be a control point clash for some objective based combat, just a regular deathmatch, or even 5v5s or 2v2s for when you really want to make sure those other players know you're better than them. The best part about this being there's a wide variety of mechs and different weapon attachments you can customize with them, and each of these having their own strategy and counters. So in some matches you won't completely dominate if you play right, but if the other players know what they're doing, they can easily counter and destroy you. Mech Arena just launched globally, and right now they're running a huge celebration event in-game, with loads of awesome things to do in-game and daily welcome rewards during the first week, which you definitely don't want to miss out on. But don't fret, because everyday login gifts will not end there, more stuff awaits you. Mech Arena is completely free to play on both Android and iOS right now, and you can use my personal link or the QR code right here to get the Black Carbon skin, 300 A-coins, 50,000 credits to help kickstart your game. And if you're quick, you can find me in-game, as Mech Arena has easily become one of my favorite games to pick up when I need to kill a few minutes or even sometimes a few hours. But one of the first things I do want to highlight is actually this jacket DLC for Cyberpunk 2077. It basically just adds in 2 new jackets that get deposited in your stash. There's a lot of memeing in this DLC, like after 8 months all they can manage was adding in 2 new jackets, and although technically true, it also kind of isn't, because for some shocking reason, CDPR decided that they are not actually going to tell anyone that this actually adds in a ton of additional variants. So in total, it seems like the jacket DLC actually adds in 25 new jackets into Cyberpunk 2077. Now really at its core, these are going to be variants of these 2 base versions, but some of these variants are widely different, and this actually does feature full-on color and material swaps. And some of these, the sleeves are rolled up, it has different designs overall, and even some logos on the jacket, and a lot of these are actually really cool. The original 2 jackets are fine, but I didn't really see myself using them all that often, but some of these new variants that are spawned in the world do look just way cooler overall. And it's not like this is something CDPR was like, oh yeah, by the way. No, in reality, modders for the game just accidentally stumbled upon this, as users were updating some of their mods to work with patch 1.3, and then looking at the new content, they realized there was actually way more jackets than 2 added in with this DLC. And the way these new jackets are implemented is just organically throughout the world. You'll just find them spawning on some of those missions, on bodies, etc. Although also if you're on PC, you can use console commands to give them all to yourself. Another really cool one that's still somewhat subtle, but you'll probably notice it if you play for an extended duration or if you just start a new playthrough of Cyberpunk with patch 1.3, but that is the weather changes more often now. So Cyberpunk has weather. Shocker, I know. It is so rare for the game to actually deviate from its very traditional sunny day weather. We're not really sure why that is, it's just the way the game works, but it seems like now with patch 1.3, the likelihood of you getting rain, fog, or even something more unique has gone up significantly, as you could now actually play the game, move around the game, and sometimes it'll start raining, and more often than previously. I know that's cool. Rain and fog aren't really the craziest things in the world. Where I think this really gets pretty interesting is it actually also seems to have added in acid rain spawning up more often. There are just more reports across the board of running into acid rain and in different areas of Night City. I know during my original playthrough, I literally never saw acid rain once, so hopefully now it'll at least pop up from time to time. And even further, it seems like sandstorms can now properly pop up in the Badlands. This of course was a part of one of the missions, but otherwise basically never came back until patch 1.3, 1.3, it seems to be making some appearances. Another pretty cool one. I wish in some ways the weather actually switched more, even just while filming all of the background footage for this video. I still only got a handful of weather changes. It seems like although the likelihood increased, it's still relatively low, but at the very least it is a bit better, and you will definitely see more variation, as I did again in just a couple hours of filming. There was a bucket load of nerfs to netrunners, and some that you may have not even realized. Lynx claws were nerfed. This is basically that cyberware you get for your legs that instead of being a double jump will just be a boosted jump. So you hold the jump key for a moment, boost up your jump, and then typically you would jump even higher. So in the past, the way this worked was double jump would give you a mid-air jump, so you could kind of have that traditional double jump, but the boosted jump with Lynx claws actually gave you a higher max height. So the boosted jump was just one big jump, but it was actually higher than double jump, except I guess that was too overpowered, so now they removed that, and now they are roughly the exact same height. I have no idea why they did that. I assume the vast majority of people use double jump to begin with, but now Lynx claws are even less appealing. As we talked about in my past video, both overheat and contagion got massive damage nerfs, so they'll just deal way less damage overall. The legendary ping quick hack can no longer give you the ability to quick hack enemies through walls. It'll still highlight them all, but you cannot quick hack them through a wall anymore. But perhaps the biggest nerf to this playstyle overall is how they seem to have at least somewhat reworked enemy detection. So now it seems like when quick hacking from stealth and you using a damaging quick hack, you will have kind of this countdown timer where enemies will automatically detect you after a certain amount of time, or you have to run away very quickly. And even further, it seems like sometimes even when not using damaging abilities but using some other covert quick hacks, this will kick into effect. And it seems like the combination of these changes has made it so it's almost impossible now to really be a true stealth netrunner unless you want to go a pacifist stealth netrunner. Even still, you'll probably have some problems. It's another one that really just kind of strikes me as being odd. Netrunner in general was kind of overpowered, but basically every build, once you spec into it, gets pretty overpowered, and these stealth changes in particular seem really weird. Many of the melee weapons got nerfed, like katanas and taintos, and one of the other interesting nerfs was they actually made it so a bunch of items are worth less. So many of those things previously worth 750 are now only worth 150, and even some miscellaneous items that drop off of Valentino's were nerfed in price, which makes some of the farming routes just way less viable. A totally new weapon was added to the game. This is actually a piece of cut content, but it is now re-implemented during the X Factor quest. Basically, when you're doing this quest with Judy, when you're in this office, and only when you're in this office, if you actually go over to one of the couches, you could find the Death and Taxes unique or iconic weapon. It's actually pretty boring. It has a somewhat interesting paint job, but overall it's just a power pistol. But if you're trying to get every iconic in the game, you'll have to get this one during this quest or no clip through the wall using cheats, because once you actually finish this quest, you will never be able to get back into that room, or really right after you leave the room, you're kind of locked out. But also, as I think many people know, now in Judy's apartment, you could actually find a max tac uniform. This is the only way to get this armor in the game, but it's nice to have that option. And as I'm sure many of you know at this point, the black unicorn sword also got a visual update with those rune engravings on the side that look awesome. We talked already how there's a bunch of interesting NPC updates. NPCs got the ability to kind of go around you in traffic. Baby steps, but hey, at least they're somewhat smarter. But also, it seems like they actually now will react to crime scenes and have a unique animation play when they see bodies on the ground. So as you place a body, they'll kind of look at you sideways and then turn around and speed walk away from you. It's actually kind of cool. Super niche. I'm sure this will rarely happen, but when it does happen, it does feel pretty immersive. Although if you even slightly glance away, the NPCs will oftentimes still completely vanish, which is not quite as immersive. Another one, the NPCs will actually steer now. This is one of those ones that's kind of an odd one. In the past, NPCs would steer, but it wouldn't actually sync up with their driving, so they just randomly turned the wheel every once in a while, but it didn't actually reflect which direction the car was moving in. Now, when you turn, the NPCs will actually turn the wheel in the car and show you are turning. It's such a small one, but at the same time, it is nice for us to finally be getting there. One of the big ones that did get changed is screen space reflections. This was kind of in the patch notes, but I think it was hidden in how big of an impact it actually had. Basically, there are some issues with screen space reflections actually causing some blurriness in the past, in particular on consoles and lower end settings. And now with the most recent change, you could see in a lot of before and after photos being posted online that there are just very little reflections. Another change with this, they actually made it so distant lights are dimmer or just not visible at all. So all around when driving at night, there's there's less reflections, and overall it just seems darker and grimmer in a way. There's way more things going on the road with nothing reflecting and those lights being less powerful. A lot of people are pretty upset about this one. They feel like it is a downgrade in general to not have those reflections in the world, and I think a lot of these images speak for themselves. But even further, something that is somewhat positive is they actually did make it so some of those beat in the brat challenges are easier, that being those boxing challenges you have in game. It seems like there were some balance changes around the damage and health with this, so it seems like you are either dealing more damage or enemies have less health, and perhaps even some AI changes mixed in, but just overall you will have less of a challenge here. It's not the nightmare fuel that it was previously. Unfortunately, something that is somewhat nightmare fuelish is one of these challenges actually reset with this update for a lot of people, so they had to recomplete it. One that's just kind of came out of left field and I guess CDPR gave up is V could now actually climb over barbed wire. In the past, barbed wire would do this thing where if you hit it, it would just kind of fling you off, and it would sometimes make getting over specific fences really annoying. They just removed that. Now barbed wire doesn't seem to do any damage whatsoever. I don't really know if this was a necessary change. I guess it kind of is a quality of life improvement, but I think a lot of people may have just wanted barbed wire to keep working, even though it was sometimes frustrating. I mean, the point is literally to keep you out of places, and it was doing that somewhat effectively. It seems like they may have added some new crafting hotkeys, so when actually using the crafting system, you could hit E key for max crafting as many as possible, or the Q key to craft a half quantity. But overall, it's a pretty good summation of some of the big ones, some of the more major changes to pop up with this update. Obviously hitting a lot of different fronts. Those nerfs in particular are pretty confusing, but also some of the other weird stuff like this screen space reflection change that has quite a few people frustrated, and also the barbed wire change, which I feel like more so than anything else just came out of left field. But at the same time, if you're somebody who is looking to start a new playthrough of Cyberpunk and you are on PC, again, in the next couple of days, I should have a pretty big video looking at one of the recent mods that may actually get you interested in playing again. With that said, as always, again, I do hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope you found this video informative, but until next time, I hope to see you all later.